Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel. This story ain't over. So today I'm coming to you finally with my June wrap up. I'm so sorry this is super late. Like I just did not expect that I wouldn't be able to film this until well now. So it's been a while since I've read some of these because some of these I actually finished at the end of May, but I read a lot of books, so I'm really excited to tell you about all of them. I am going to be doing this wrap up a little bit differently. Usually I do a non-spoiler and spoiler section for each book, but since there's a lot of books and because it's been a while since I read some of them, I'm just going to do non-spoiler reviews. So if you're interested in any of these books, you can listen to the review and see if you want to pick them up. But before we get into the books I read in June, let's talk about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. So Skillshare is an online learning platform for creative and curious people where you can find thousands of classes on a myriad of subjects, including like graphic design, illustration, film, video, productivity, marketing, like literally anything you can think of that you'd want to develop a skill in. There's a class for it on Skillshare. They use a mix of class projects and video lessons that help you really understand the subject. And there's also like class resources that you can find underneath the videos, which is really helpful. And the class I want to highlight today is Productivity for Creatives, Build a System that Brings Out Your Best. And this is a class taught by the productivity YouTuber Thomas Frank. You may have seen his videos here, but some of my favorite videos to watch on YouTube are actually productivity videos. And so I have been actually binging a bunch of productivity Skillshare classes, including Thomas Frank's, but also ones from like Ali Abdaal, which I have mentioned before. I really love his channel. And one of the things I love about this class is that it gives you constructive ways to build systems that help you be creative without like constantly putting in the work. So yeah, overall it's a great class and highly recommend if you're just looking to be a little bit more productive. And I'm really excited to say that for today's video, the first 1,000 people who click the link in my description will get a full month free trial of Skillshare Premium. So previously some of my videos, it was only like a 2-week trial, but this time it is a 1-month trial. So definitely jump on that deal. Go click the link in my description so that you can get that free trial and try out a new skill. You can definitely take like multiple classes within the span of a month. So I think it's an awesome opportunity and it's definitely one that I think has really enriched my life. And anytime I'm like looking to learn something new, I'll just go on Skillshare, search it up, and there's like always probably a class for it. So yes, there's 1,000 people who click the link in my description will get a 1-month free trial. So go click that link, and thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. All right, so now let's talk about the books that I read in June. So I read a whopping 6 books in June, actually technically 5 because one of these, Zara Hossain, is here. I read at the end of May, but I also finished Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating, Counting Down With You by Tashi Bhuiyan, An Emotion of Great Delight by Tara Mafi, Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho, and People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I will have these all timestamped down below if you just want to flip to a specific book to hear about it, but let's get into my specific review for each. All right, let's start with Zara Hossain is Here by Sabina Khan. Some of you may recognize Sabina Khan as the author of The Love and Lies of Roxana Ali, which is one of my favorite books ever. That one deals with like the queer POC experience. The main character is Bangladeshi and she is also Muslim and she is a lesbian and her family is like very unaccepting of her sexuality. But this book, while also following a main character who is Muslim, who is also a lesbian or queer in some way, I don't think they actually name her sexuality in the book. Her family is actually from Pakistan, but in this book, what I found was really interesting was that her family is really accepting of her sexuality, which was just like so wonderful to see. So I love that Sabina Khan has done like both these representations. But this book is mainly focused actually on the immigration experience and the way that Zara Hossain's family has been waiting on a green card for years, since around the time that they moved to America when Zara was just a little kid. And so in this book, they're dealing with a lot of like Islamophobia and specifically like a bully that Zara has at school and like his whole family and some like really difficult and harrowing situations. But there's also an aspect of Zara falling for this other girl at her school, and that girl happens to be like super Christian, I think, and so her family is like really not accepting of her sexuality. So it was interesting to see that juxtaposition, and the romance was actually really sweet and really cute. It definitely wasn't the main focus, but it was still like nice to see that representation. But yeah, overall this was like a super short book. Like I don't know if you can tell, but it's like really short. And I read this actually via the audiobook, which I highly recommend. And it was only about like 4 to 5 hours. So I just like listened to it while journaling one day and it was a fantastic read. Very powerful in the fact that it is short, but I do feel like I wish like certain things we got a little bit more of. But overall I think it was like a great read and like a powerful one, and I loved the representation, so I'm like glad that this is out in the world. And overall I think that's about all the thoughts that I have on it. I think it was was a fantastic read. If you like The Love and Lies of Roxana Ali, I would definitely check this one out, and if you're just looking for some like sapphic rep, this is also great. Alright, the next book that I finished is one that I have been talking about incessantly, and that is Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jagirdar. So I actually did a live event with Adiba here on YouTube for her launch week, and it was such a fun event. We recommended a bunch of like books and media that feature South Asians or are made by South Asians, and so it was a really great time just like bonding over that. And we also talked a little bit about her new book, Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating, but also her previous book, The Henna Wars, which you may remember was a book that came out last year and was also fantastic, features a sapphic romance, and was just a really cute read. And this one was even cuter, and I personally love this one even better than The Henna Wars. So for those of you who don't know, Hani and Ishu is this like fake dating situation where Hani is bisexual and her friends are basically like not believing her when she tells them that she's bisexual. And so she hatches this sort of plot to fake date Ishu, the other Bengali girl at her school. And Ishu is not really out, and she has like some really strict parents, and she's trying to prove herself to her parents that she can become head girl at her school. And she agrees to this because she can use Hani's popularity to become head girl. So they both have like their own motives to this, but obviously with every fake dating situation, they end up falling for each other. And it was so freaking adorable. And like, that is like my main feeling after reading this. It was so freaking adorable. Like, I loved both the main characters. I think I really related to both of them in very different ways. Personally, I think I am more like Ishu, but I think there's aspects of my personality that is a lot like Hani. And so I loved like seeing both of them and like the way that they interact with each other. There's also like some really annoying antagonists in this book. And I think it's similar with The Henna Wars as well. Hani has some like really terrible friends who like won't accept her sexuality and are just like overall rude girls. And so in that way I hated them, but I think they were written really well because I hated them so much. And I think overall I really also enjoyed the way that this represented two different experiences of being queer but also Bengali. So Hani's parents are a lot more like accepting. They know about her sexuality and like they are really supportive, and they're really supportive of her specifically. And then Ishu's parents are very quite different. They're a lot more conservative. They don't know about Ishu's sexuality, and they're also very much like the type of parents who like compare their siblings. And so Ishu has an older sister who has recently sort of disappointed her parents, and so Ishu's trying to sort of live up to her parents' expectations and show that she's like the better child and that sort of thing. And so it was interesting to see like the difference between their families, which I really enjoyed. Like, it was a really nuanced portrayal. Overall, I really, really loved it. It is a fantastic sapphic book if you are looking for one, and yeah, it was just like adorable. Like, I think it's definitely one of like my favorite reads for the year, so yeah, very excited about it. All right, this next book is one that I have a little bit of mixed feelings about, but I still think it was like a great book, and I think it's a great teen read. So that book is Counting Down With You by Tashi Bhuyan. So I was actually really excited for this one because I love the author. I think she's fantastic. She seems like such a sweet person on Twitter, and this basically follows a Bangladeshi main character who has like really strict parents and who want her to do like pre-med and like become a doctor and like have this very specific path for her. But the main character, Karina, deals with a lot of anxiety. She wants to do an English degree, but she knows that her parents would never accept that. And she's also dealing with the way that her parents treat her and her brother very differently because she is a girl. And I loved actually that representation. The fact that she showed how different it was for her versus her brother, because I think that's like a really prevalent thing in like South Asian communities. But overall, I think that this was like really sweet and nice in terms of like the representation. I think I just didn't really love like the romance in it and like that whole aspect. And the romance is a big part of it. So basically Karina is like, you know, doing really well in school. She's doing her pre-med stuff, but she also tutors in English on the side and like helps her English teacher. And so her English teacher asked her to tutor this other boy at her school named Ace. And Ace is a bit of like the resident bad boy at her school. He's always wearing like a leather jacket, and he's a bit mysterious, and he comes from like a wealthy family, and there's like this whole situation going on. And you find out pretty early on that like Ace has a tense relationship with his family and acts a certain way because of them. And so Karina starts to tutor him, but Ace, for certain reasons, doesn't want his family to know that he's getting tutored, so he lies to them and says that he's actually dating Karina, and so the two of them start fake dating. But I think this is where the book sort of fell flat for me, because the fake dating part wasn't that strong. It just felt like they were dating, like they weren't really trying that hard to fake it from the beginning, because Ace does like a lot of like cute things from the beginning. Like, he acts like her boyfriend from the beginning, and it's not that situation where like two characters are like forcing themselves to like interact with each other to fake date, because I think that is a sort of like hate to love situation, whereas this felt like they had crushes on each other from the beginning. So yeah, in certain ways it felt like a little bit younger, but I think in that way it's like a really fantastic YA read. Like I think as a teen I would have loved this. I think like any teen looking for like this sort of rep would love this. And I loved, like truly, I really loved the representation of like Karina and her family. And she also has like this really awesome grandma character, so her Dadu, who is just super supportive and a lot less like closed-minded compared to Karina's parents. And so it was really interesting seeing her Dadu kind of step in for her and advocate for her and just like really support her. So that way, like I really loved that aspect of the book, and I think it was like an overall sweet and like adorable read. I just don't think it was like specifically what I was like hoping for, looking for, but I think it did a lot of things really well. All right, the next book is one that I'm super excited to talk about because it's by one of my favorite authors, and that is An Emotion of Great Delight by Tara Mafi. So if you guys have been following my channel for any amount of time, you probably know that I loved A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tara Mafi. It's one of my all-time favorite books ever. I have a whole 45-minute book talk for it if you want to go watch that video. I'll link it down below or on the screen. But I was sort of hesitant to pick up this one because it is set in a similar time period. So I think A Very Large Expanse of Sea is set in 2002. This is set in 2003. So it's like a similar sort of situation. And I had already heard sort of mixed opinions about this one. But let me tell you guys, I picked up the audiobook for this like randomly one day. I had been like hesitating to pick up the book even after I got the physical copy, like the pre-order that came in. But I sort of turned on the audiobook one day and started following along, and this book just stole my heart, because I think Tara Mafi has a way of like capturing emotion really well, especially sad emotions, I think. And this is a very sad book, I will say that. Like there's a lot of sad things that happen, and the main character is like pretty sad throughout, but it has like funny moments and like cute moments and that kind of thing. But I think overall the tone is quite sad. Regardless of that, I think this is a really beautiful book. So it's set in 2003. Our main character, Shadi, is Muslim. She wears hijab and she is dealing with a lot of Islamophobia. But I do think that like the instances of Islamophobia that she faces in this aren't like showcased as much as they are in A Very Large Expanse of Sea. Like I think that book was very much about that experience, whereas this one felt like a little bit different. There's a lot of other things going on, and it's also told in like multiple timelines. So there's like the current present day, and then there's a year ago. And so you're seeing the way that Shadi's life has sort of crumbled in the past year. And one of those things is that her brother has died. And then she also goes through a really intense friend breakup. So, you know, someone that she grew up with, someone that she had been friends with for years in her life, they are no longer friends in the current timeline that we're following. And so we're seeing how Shadi's life has like crumbled from a year ago to where it is now. And she's just dealing with all of these emotions and this intense hatred she has for her father because of the role he played in her brother's death. And all of this is sort of like pieced out to us very slowly, and you're trying to decipher why Shadi is feeling this way throughout the entire book. And there's a little bit of a romance as well with the best friend's brother, which also causes some of the tensions between her and the best friend. But overall, I think that this book was like less about what happens and more about like the internal journey and dialogue that Shadi has in her head and the way that she's feeling. And I think in that way it was like really beautifully done. I think that the emotions were what was the most important part. Like it was an emotion of great delight. It's not a happy book, and I think that the title is meant to be ironic, but I just like loved this sort of like portrayal of like this sad teen. Like I think that's a weird thing to say, but also like I loved it. I think it was just so well done. And I do feel like this is one of those books similar to A Very Large Expanse of Sea. It leaves you without full closure. It doesn't give you all of the resolution that you want, and I think that is one of the things that makes it super powerful. I do feel like that is the main reason why a lot of people had mixed feelings about this, the fact that there isn't a lot of resolution by the end. But I think that I actually really love that. I love kind of ambiguous endings, and I love bittersweet endings as well. So this definitely has one of them, but it is a little bit on the happy side as well. So I wouldn't say that this is completely like hopeless and like sad. It does have its moments of joy and beauty, and there's some like just really heart-wrenching moments as well. And I found myself wanting to cry at multiple points in this book. So yeah, overall, this is like a absolute new favorite, like definitely one of my favorite reads for the year. I devoured it in like a single night because I just needed to know mostly what Shadi was feeling and why she was feeling that way. And I just related to her, I think, in a lot of ways. Like she just had this like sadness that like no one really talks about, and it was nice to see that portrayed. All right, next I have Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho. Many of you may know I read this for the Overachiever book club. So Overachiever is a magazine that supports Asian women and other gender minorities. And recently they decided to start a book club. And so this was actually the first book club pick, and I had the immense honor of co-hosting the book club. And so we actually had an event at the end of June, and it was actually super fantastic. We had less people than we thought we were gonna have, but it was actually a really fun and intimate sort of conversation. And I got to meet a couple of you, which was really awesome, and like it was just so cool and surreal, like getting to talk to some of you about like a book. And we had like a really great discussion. I definitely think that this book is one that has so many elements and themes that are really great for discussion. So if you are planning to pick this up or are looking for a book for your book club, or like, you know, a personal book club that you have in your community, like I would highly recommend this one because it was just fantastic. We had so much to talk about, and I feel like we could have kept going if we wanted to. But basically, for those of you who don't know, Blackwater Sister follows a Zillennial main character. She is like in her early 20s. So it is an adult novel. Do not mistake this for a YA because it has a few mature themes. And do be careful, I would say there's content warnings for sexual assault and rape, but I do think it was dealt with really well. And so basically our main character is in her early 20s. She is sort of trying to figure out her life. She is jobless, she is closeted, and her family has recently gone through a lot of financial trouble. So they're moving back to Malaysia to sort of live with some of their family for a little bit, and as they like get back up on their feet, and like her dad is getting a job with like one of her uncles or something, and so she's going with them to support them and help them out. But she's also like having to deal with moving back to Malaysia, even though she hasn't been there since she was a toddler. So it's a very unfamiliar place to her. And the interesting thing that happens is that the main character, Jess, starts to hear these voices in her head. And it turns out that voice happens to be the ghost of her grandmother. And her grandmother in life happened to be the medium of this goddess named the Blackwater Sister. And she's a vengeful goddess. And she wants revenge on this business magnate in Malaysia. And so Jess is having to deal with her grandmother sort of using her body to, you know, do whatever she wants and get the vengeance, and is also like threatening to spill her secrets and, you know, reveal that she's a lesbian, and all of these things are going on. And so Jess is sort of dealing with that. And overall it was like super, super fantastic. Like I think this was just so interesting. It did have like some of its lulls and like pace. And so for that reason, like it wasn't a perfect book, but I think it was just a lot of fun and it was really interesting. And I just loved the different themes and like the different foils the characters had, and also just like how batshit crazy this book was. Like to a certain extent, like some crazy things happen, I feel like, and we have like vengeful gods and, you know, ghosts and all of that. And so it was just really interesting in terms of like the fantasy aspect of it. But what I also really loved was that since this was set in Malaysia, like we got to see all of like the mixes of culture and just the way that Jess is like sort of dealing with that, and like the mix of languages as well, which I really loved. And another thing I really loved was just like the representation of her being like queer. And there is this whole thread throughout the book of, you know, Jess not wanting to reveal her sexuality to her family because she doesn't want to disappoint them. She really believes in this idea that she, you know, should be taking care of them and should be living up to their expectations. And there's this moment where, so she has like a girlfriend in the book named Sharanya who is in Singapore and who is trying to get her to like move to Singapore with her and, you know, come out to her parents and all of that. And so there's this moment when Sharanya says like, this is a prison of your own making. Like you have put yourself in this position because you just have this like desperate need to not disappoint them, and that is why you can't like move forward. And so throughout this book, while Jess is going through all this crazy supernatural stuff, there's this like underlying element of her dealing with the idea of her parents not knowing about her sexuality and wanting to just be herself and like not be afraid. And it's this really beautiful emotional journey, I feel like, and by the end of it, it's like she's made it through all this supernatural stuff and she's ready to take on the regular life stuff, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, it was a fantastic book. Highly recommend. I think it was such a fun and interesting read, and definitely one that is great for discussions. But yeah, if you guys haven't checked out Overachiever, go check them out. I will leave the link to their website, the magazine, down below, and also the link to the book club newsletter, which gives you like info about the next picks and all of that. Very excited, and I think it's just like a really wonderful community. So if you guys just want like people to discuss books with, I definitely think you should check it out. All right, and the final book that I want to talk about today is one that I was really excited to pick up, and it did not disappoint, and that was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Guys, this is so good. I love this so much. So I absolutely loved Beach Read by Emily Henry earlier this year. You guys know that. It was one of my favorite reads in February. And so when I found out that Emily Henry had another book coming out this year, I was super excited. I ordered it immediately. And when it came in the mail, like I picked it up immediately, but I was like in the middle of a bunch of other books, so I didn't get to finishing it until much later. But yeah, this was the last book I read in June and it was fantastic. I think in certain ways I love this more than Beach Read, and in certain ways I love Beach Read more. I think they both have their own strengths, but I think this is just a wonderful, like, slow burn friends to lovers romance. If you don't know, it follows two different main characters, Poppy and Alex, and they are like complete opposites. Poppy is like the type who wants to travel everywhere and not be tied down, whereas Alex is the type of person who wants to stay in his small town and get a steady job and like have a family and settle down and all of that. And these two characters sort of meet in college and start this sort of tradition of going on a summer trip every summer, and they go to these different places that Poppy has sort of researched together. And although they are very different people, they get along really well. But 2 years ago, everything went wrong, and so they haven't spoken since. And the book opens up with Poppy sort of realizing she's unhappy with her life and wanting to reconnect with Alex. And so she hatches this plot to do another summer trip with him and like make it her last effort to try to mend their relationship and their friendship without taking it to that next step to the romance level, even though they're both madly in love with each other, but they don't want to ruin their friendship. But yeah, this was like fantastic. I love friends to lovers romances, and I think this was like a really nice slow burn. And what I loved is that the chapters are set up in a way that you get like chapters from the, you know, main timeline, like the current day, but you also get chapters from 2 summers ago and 5 summers ago and 10 summers ago, and you're like getting all of this like past information about like their previous trips and like what was going on in their lives. And I love stories like that where you are seeing a relationship over multiple years. So that way I really loved it, and I just loved seeing how their relationship sort of evolved over the years. But I also just loved like how it was like so angsty and like will they, won't they, and you just like wanted them to like take the extra leap. And like it had me on my toes for a little bit there, because there was one point where I thought they were gonna get together for sure, and then it like kind of switched it up on me. Yeah, the suspense is like pretty good towards the end, so I loved it. And yeah, overall it's just like a great romance. Like I don't have much else to say. I think it was really interesting seeing how like their personalities were very different too, and how that sort of worked together, and how they both had their specific anxieties about certain things. Like Alex had this anxiety about Poppy thinking he was boring, and Poppy had this anxiety about not being like the type of girl that he wanted. And it's just like it didn't really matter to them. Like they didn't have a specific type, they just loved each other, and I think that was really beautiful. So yeah, it was fantastic and I loved it, and definitely the perfect beach read, so highly recommend if you're looking for something to pick up this summer. Alright, but those are all the books that I read in June and that I wanted to talk about today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, leave me a comment down below if you have read any of these books, or if you're planning to read them, if you're excited for any of them, or if you have specific thoughts on any of these books. If you want to talk about spoiler stuff, just like leave a warning for a spoiler at the beginning so that other people don't, you know, encounter any spoils, and we can discuss in the comments. I love reading what you guys think of certain books, and especially if you have like different opinions, it's always interesting. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Go check out my Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads in the description and down below, and I will see you in my next video. So please remember that the story ain't over. Bye!